Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Pete DiMarco. I am the teacher for the speech and debate elective here at the high school. I unfortunately were unable to meet in person tonight, which I would have preferred, but I'd like to take the time in this video to just give you an overview of the class so you can have an understanding of what it is that your kids are undertaking with me. So speech and debate, obviously, is a public speaking course, and it is about both verbal and nonverbal communications in varying levels. The course builds skills one on top of the other. Now, we will be doing presentations, which doing them online changes them a little bit from what we would be doing in person, but it's still a very valuable experience. So even if your kids don't wind up going on in life to do anything that, involves actual public speaking the way we think of it formally. Politicians standing behind a podium addressing a large crowd in person. The skills still play out and are so important. Those of us who are adults with families and jobs and lives, we know how important it is to be able to effectively communicate to others in the world what we need, whether it's sitting down at a job interview or whether it's at work around a conference table or applying for a mortgage for our first home. Being able to look at someone, sit across from them, stand in front of them, or lead them in a room and be able to effectively communicate is a vital experience for all of us. So I've given here, and you can see on the screen here, a list of the topics and the way the course kind of builds on itself. We start with basic speaking skills. In fact, your kids should be finding selections at home to do for an oral presentation so that they can practice those skills. I've already discussed with them a number of qualities that we find effective for public speakers. I've shown them examples. I've had them now look for an example on their own, and we've looked at a number of criteria that go into making a speaker effective, both in tangible ways and intangible ways, right? We can see that someone is standing with good posture. We can hear that they are speaking loud enough, that their words are crisp and they're enunciating well enough. But even though we can't see it, we can perceive confidence. We can perceive sincerity. And these are the, different areas that we are looking at in trying to figure out, what can I do physically with my body, my posture, my eye contact, and my voice vocally, my volume, my pace, my enunciation. And how does that translate to the audience? Do I come across as sincere? Do I come across as confident? Do I come across as knowledgeable? And that's the first unit that we work on, just working on building the skills. But then we start to add different ideas and techniques. For instance, speaking to an audience. We do not address people the same way uniformly. A great example of this is President Trump. Whether you love him or hate him aside, when you watch him speaking before crowds of his supporters, he speaks in a very, very different way than he does when he's speaking in front of the news media or the Congress for a State of the Union address. Because the audiences are different, the situations are different, so therefore what's appropriate to do is very different. And those are extreme examples, but even if you think back to President Obama, when he was speaking on official state business, he was still with a different demeanor than he was, for instance, when he was speaking more tongue-in-cheek at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, say. So these are skills that we need to do. And to some extent, we do them naturally. I'm sure we can all think back to when our kids were younger. They spoke to us differently when we were trying to get them to bed and they didn't want to go than they did when they wanted another cookie. Just like I get, different from my students when I'm being, stern with them, they speak to me one way, but when they want a favor from me or an extension, they come and they speak an entirely different way. So that's also what we do. We're going to look at how to take the basics of what we do to communicate and how do we alter them based on what we want out of our audience. We will then start looking at how to compose a speech, right? How to research and prepare for it and educate ourselves so we can feel confident in what we have to say, and then choosing effective language to deliver that speech, which is really a new skill because the writing that students are taught is almost overwhelmingly, with the occasional assignment to write a story or some poetry, it's overwhelmingly essay writing. And I don't care how good an essay is, an audience isn't going to want to sit down and hear an essay read to them. It's not meant for that type of audience. So we need to think when an audience is listening to us, instead of reading our words, how do we need to change our communication to make that happen? From there, we look into methods of persuasion and argumentation. How do we try to move our audience, particularly based on how many different audience types there can be? And then ultimately, we take all of these skills and put them together and try to conduct a debate in which listening is just as important as speaking. So that's an overview of the general class, and that's what we're looking to accomplish. I'm thinking of trying a mix of having them speak live on camera during Zoom, and also giving them opportunities to maybe video record themselves speaking. We have room to kind of play with the online format that we have that we wouldn't have were we in class. That said, hopefully we will eventually be in class because there is something important about being able to speak in front of others with that audience there in front of you. But I am confident that we can take the platform that we have online and utilize that to still help give your kids the experience that they should have. So that said, I'm open to questions, I'm open to comments, and I'm open to suggestions as well, because I've been teaching this course for 20 years now, multiple times a year because it's a half-year course. Before I came over to teaching, I was an actor and voiceover artist. So this is something that I did for a living. So I have a lot to offer them. And I've been teaching a long time. I know how to teach. But I'd be a little bit arrogant were I to suggest I know how to do this perfectly in this online format because it's new for all of us. So I'm looking at it as a learning experience for all of us. And I've already told all your kids, and I open the same invitation to you, collaborative, feedback-oriented discourse would really help in making this the best experience that we can. So I've invited them to share feedback with me, suggestions, and I invite the same of you. So I can be reached by email through the school website. So I thank you for your time and attention tonight, and I hopefully will be able to meet in person in the future. Thank you. Good night.